Hello, welcome back sa ating Tax to Class, Business and Transfer Taxes. Tayo ay nasa Chapter 2 na. Value Added Tax on Sale of Goods and Properties. Ako pa rin, ang inyong guro, Romualdo Fernandez Tredo. Kung kayo ay handa na, kumuha ng ballpen at papel para sa mga notes. So let's start. So what is value added tax? So value added tax is a consumption tax. Kasi it is imposed on acquisition of goods or services. Value added tax is imposed on the seller. But since value added tax is a business tax, the seller passes the said tax to the buyer. Kasi nga, ang business tax is an indirect tax. So, pwedeng i-pass on ni seller kung gusto niya yung business tax or yung VAT. Kaya, itong VAT pinapass on sa mga buyer. Although in-impose siya sa seller, ang ultimate burden ay napupunta sa consumer. Number 2, value-added tax must be shown on the official receipt or invoice issued to the buyer as a separate item. So, kung makikita nyo dun sa mga resibo na natatanggap nyo when you acquire goods or services, hindi total price, total invoice price ang nakalagay doon sa item. So, nakaseparate yung selling price, tapos idadagdag yung value-added tax kasi requirement yon ng tax law na ipakita yung VAT separately. Number 3, value-added tax is 12%, 5%, and or 0% of the selling price. So, ang familiar lang tayo dito is yung ini-impose sa sale of goods and services locally na 12%. Pero other than dun sa 12%, madidiscuss natin today dito sa value-added tax na mayroon pang ibang tax rates, and that is yung 5 and 0%. Number 4, while each sale has a value-added tax and separate recording in the price books of account is on per transaction basis. So, ang recording at saka charging ng value-added tax is on a per transaction basis. And then, yung reporting and payment ng tax is made monthly naman. So, who is that taxpayer? Ang magbabayad ng VAT ay any person who sells, barters, or exchanges goods or properties in the ordinary course of business. So, magiging VAT taxpayer sila kasi masasubject na sila sa VAT if they are not included dun sa exemptions na madidiscuss natin sa ating mga susunod na topic. Yung mga exempted sa value added tax. Kasi merong exemption. So, please take note yung requirement It should be yung sale, barter, or exchanges should be in the ordinary course of business, which na discuss na natin yung requirements ng in the ordinary course of business. Dalawa yon. Una is, it must be ordinary or repetitive. Paulit-ulit dapat. na ginagawa yung transaction para masabing in the ordinary course of business. And of course, yung isa pang requirement o requisite niya is yung it should be done for economic purposes. So, pag sinabi natin for economic purposes, dapat it must be for profit. So, mayroon lang note dun sa baba. So, from now on daw, sa mga discussion natin, every time na marinig niyo yung sale na term, every time na gagamitin natin yung sale na term, ibig sabihin, it will include na barter and exchange of properties. So, what is sale? Barter or exchange? Unahin na natin yung sale, transfer of ownership of property in consideration of money received or to be received. So, ang kapalit nun ay pera, whether natanggap mo na or matatanggap mo pa lang. So, kapag pera ang kapalit, is a sale. However, yung barter or exchange naman is a transfer of ownership of property in consideration of property received or to be received. So, ang consideration na matatanggap mo sa barter or exchange is also a property. So, hindi siya cash. So, pag non-cash yung na-receive mong consideration ng property or goods na binigay mo, then it is not a sale. It is considered as barter or exchange. So, yung sale or exchange of private property is not in the ordinary course of business. And therefore, it is not subject to value added tax. Kasi nga, ang requirement para ma-subject to value added tax, sabi natin kanina sa previous slide, it should be in the ordinary course of business. So, sabi nga natin kanina, ang subject to VAT ay sale, exchange, or barter. So, however, sa tax law natin, mayroon tayong tinatawag na deemed sale. So, ano ibig sabihin ng deemed sale? Ang ibig sabihin ng deemed sale ay as if sale. So, they are considered sold na. Yung mga goods na under nito is considered sold na. So, kapag subject yan ng value added tax, baka may mag-due na value added tax. So, ano yung mga sinasabi nating deemed sale transaction? Number 1 is transfer, use, or consumption not in the ordinary course of business of goods or properties ordinarily intended for sale in the ordinary course of business. So, yung mga ibinibenta mo, mga goods na binibenta mo ordinarily, pero kinuha mo at ginamit. O, yun ay considered sale yun. Kasi ang intention mo, ang original intention para sa goods is ibenta. So, since kinuha mo, considered sold yun, considered sold na siya, and therefore, pwedeng ma-subject to value added tax if it is not exempted. Letter B, distribution or transfer of inventory to shareholders or investors for their shares in the profit of a VAT registered person. So, parang ganun din yung concept niya, no? So, distribution of profits instead na binenta, ibinigay na lang dun sa mga owners as their share sa profit. So, considered yun as nabenta and therefore, pag subject to VAT, dapat mag-remit ng value added tax. Letter C, distribution or transfer of inventory to creditors in payment of debt. Okay, ganun din. Yung items for sale, instead na ibenta mo, pinambayad mo ng utang ng business. So, ganun din, considered yun as deemed sale as if nabenta. So, baka mayroong value added tax kung hindi siya exempted ulit. Letter D, consignment of goods if actual sale is not made within 60 days. So be careful sa mga consignment, yung mga iniiwan na goods ng ibang manufacturer or seller or distributor sa'yo, kailangan na monitor mo siya kung ilang days na siya na nasa custody mo. Kasi sabi diyan, kapag nag-exceed ng 60 days, consider na siya as sold. So, magbabayad na ng VAT. Kung subject ng VAT, yung goods na nag-distribute sa'yo. Kung hindi siya exempted. Retirement from or cessation of business with respect to inventories. So, ganun din yung mga unsold inventory kapag ikaw ay mag-stop na ng business. Titigil na ng operation. So, pag tumigil ka ng operation, meron kang hindi nabenta na goods, considered as sold din lahat yun. So, parang yung una lang na yun. Siyempre, kanino mapupunta yung goods? Yung sa mga owner. Since kinuha ng owner, parang, yun nga, yung parang sa number 1, parang pagkuha ng inventory na originally for sale. So, since declare mo na siya as sales, and of course, kailangan mo i-comply yung mga tax liability kung ano man yung mga kailangang taxes. What are goods or properties? Goods or properties are tangible and intangible objects which are capable of pecuniary estimation. So, ang goods and properties are tangible and intangible. May physical characteristic or wala. Pwede mong establish yung presence using your senses. No? Pag nagamit mo yung senses mo, tangible siya. Pero pag hindi mo kayang gamitin yung iyong senses para establish yung kanyang presence, intangible siya. Bakit mo malalaman na intangible siya? Kasi may value. So, whether tangible yan, may physical characteristic o wala, still, basta may value, considered pa rin yan as good and property. So, what are goods? Goods are movable properties. Thus, sales by a car dealer are sales of goods in the conduct of trade or business subject to value added tax. So, pag goods, movable properties, what's within the meaning of properties? The term properties are real properties. Thus, sales by real estate dealer are sales of properties in the conduct of trade or business is also subject to value added tax. So, pag goods, natin, it is a movable property that can be transferred from one place to another. If not, property siya, ibig sabihin, these are yung naka-attach the ground and permanent. Sila yung real property. Tax base. So, ano ang tax base natin sa value-added tax? It is the gross selling price. So, what do you mean by gross selling price? It is the total amount of money or its equivalent which the purchaser pays or is obligated to pay to the seller in consideration of the sale, barter, or exchange. So, kung magkano yung babayaran ng seller ay ng buyer dun sa seller, babayaran o binayaran, yun yung tinatawag nating gross selling price. The VAT itself is not included dun sa gross selling price dapat. However, yung excise tax is part of the gross selling price. Kapag subject to excise tax, yung goods. So, ano na ulit yung mga items na subject to excise tax, yung diniscuss natin dun sa previous chapter, yung mga non-essential goods, kung ikaw ay importer at saka manufacturer ng mga non-essential goods na na-enumerate natin sa previous chapter. So let us elaborate further itong gross selling price. It includes everything that the buyer pays to the seller. Sabi na nga natin yan kanina, except yung value-added tax. However, kasama ang excise tax. Sabi natin kanina, di ba? However, mayroong allowed na downward adjustment para sa gross selling price. So, ito yung mga sinasabing downward adjustment. So, mayroon, kahit na sinasabi siyang gross selling price, mayroon pa rin i-deduct. And these are sales returns and allowances at saka sales discount. So, dapat tatanggalin mo muna to bago ka mag-compute ng value added tax kasi ina-allow siya. The law and regulations allow downward adjustment only for the following. So, ito lang ay ibabawas mo dun sa selling price. Kasi baka malito ka. Gross selling price, so yun, walang i-deduct. Hindi. Merong downward adjustment. Ito nga. Sales, returns, and allowances, at saka sales discount. Adjustment para sa ating gross selling price. Para makuha yung gross selling price, which is yung tax base ng value added tax. So, let us illustrate yung determination ng gross selling price. Sa pagkuha ng tax base, Mr. A sold an article to Mr. B. The quoted selling price was 10,000, not including freight and value-added tax. Mr. B has to pay 10,500. Si buyer magbabayad ng 10,500 kasi may additional freight na inimpose si Mr. A, si seller. And the value-added tax before the title to the goods passes to him upon his delivery at his place. So, babayaran din daw niya kasama yung value-added tax na. So, magkano ang gross selling price nung binenta ni Mr. A kay Mr. B? Eh di mo kung magkano yung babayaran ni Mr. B kay Mr. A. Pero, hindi kasama yung value-added tax. So, the answer is 10,500. Yung freight lang ang pwedeng idagdag. Hindi mo pwedeng idagdag yung value-added tax. So, the answer is, I repeat, 10,500. Another example, Mr. C produced an article at a production cost of 50,000 pesos. The article are subject to excise tax, 5,000. The article became subject to excise tax the moment they came into existence. And though payment of the tax will be made only upon the removal of the goods from the place of production, the share of the articles in the operating expenses is calculated at 8,000 and the desired profit is 37,500. So, determine daw natin yung selling price. So, ang selling price is, it must include all yung charges na dapat bayaran ni buyer dun sa seller. So, ano-ano yung mga yun? Siyempre, una, excise tax. Kasi manufacturer si Mr. C to subject sa excise tax. So, ipapass on niya yung excise tax. So, mayroon din daw share yung article sa operating expenses amounting to 8,000. So, babawiin din ni Mr. C yun. Sama mo. And then, ang desired profit niya, ang gusto niyang kitain dun sa ipinuduce niya na worth 50,000 is 37,500. So, i-add mo lahat yan. The answer is, yan ang sisingilin lahat ni Mr. C kay buyer. So, the answer is 100,000 ang gross selling price. Mr. D had a gross value added tax not included of 425,000. Sales returns and allowance for the same period and sales discount stated on the invoice availed of by the customer were 20,000 and 5,000 pesos respectively. So the gross selling price daw of yung sales ni Mr. D is, syempre sabi natin kanina, yung sales return and allowance is allowed as downward adjustment. So you have to deduct yung 20 and 5,000. So 425 minus 20,000 and 5,000, ang gross selling price is of course 400,000. Another illustration, Mr. D sold an article for 50,000. However, the article has a prevailing market value of 100,000. So, yung selling price of 50,000 compared dun sa market value ng item is grossly inadequate. Parang kalahati lang kasi yung selling price niya. So, in this case, the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue will decide kung ano ang magiging tax base. Another example, a company is a lumber sawmill. It used lumber from its production to produce the residential house of its president. So, lumber siya, tapos ginamit niya yung mga lumber para i-construct yung bahay ni president. Ginamit niyang material. So, therefore, this is a transaction deemed sale. So, yung Commissioner of Internal Revenue will again decide kung magkano yung price nung mga lumber. Kasi nga, considered siya na deemed sale. So, dapat malaman kung ano ang magiging gross selling price niya para ma-compute mo yung VAT. So, earlier, na-identify na natin yung mga VAT tax rates. So, they are 12%, 5%, at saka 0%. So, yung 12% is applicable sa local or domestic sales. Pa dito lang sa Philippines. Kapag ang customer mo ay taga-Philippines lang, ang bumibili ng product mo ay taga-Philippines lang, so 12% ang applicable rate. 5% naman kapag sa government ka nakipag-transact or yung mga certain entities. And then 0% if it is an export sale. So what is export sale na tinatawag nating zero rated? Ibig sabihin ng zero rated, ibig sabihin yung output tax niya is subject to yung sales niya of goods and services is subject to 0%. However, pwede pa rin niyang maklaim yung mga binayaran niyang VAT on acquisition of goods and services, etc., etc. So, sa succeeding lessons natin, makikita natin yung mga benefits of being a zero rated. But for now, balikan muna natin yung export, meaning ng export sale. So, ang meaning ng export sale ay sale and actual shipment or exportation of goods from the Philippines to another country. And it should be paid in acceptable foreign currency or its equivalent in goods and services. In accordance sa rules ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So, yun ang pinakonsider nating export sale na zero rated. So, we have here a case and we will determine kung export sale ba siya o hindi. Mr. E exported his manufactured goods to F company in the United States. Under terms of shipment, FOB, California, United States. Payment was in dollar remitted through the Philippine National Bank, California, USA branch. So, na-meet naman niya yung requirements, di ba? Nagkaroon ng actual shipment. Ang term pa nga ay FOB, California. And it will be paid in foreign currency. So, na-meet naman niya yung requirement ng export and therefore, and so this is zero traded sale or export nga. Another, G company exported its main manufactured goods to H company in the United States. So, US ulit. Under terms of shipment, FOB Manila, Philippines. Payments was in dollar remitted through the Philippine National Bank, California, USA branch. Ayun, so mayroon namang payment through Philippine National Bank and nagkaroon din ng shipment. So it is a valid export. So this is a zero rated transaction. So let's discuss yung formula, value added tax formula. So ito yung formula natin. Output tax less input tax equals VAT payable ng seller. So yung VAT payable na yan, it will be remitted sa BIR monthly. So ano ba yung output tax? Yung seller's value added tax on sales. So pag nagbenta si seller, yun. Kung local lang yan at subject to VAT talaga, so yung amount ng sales niya, yung selling price, yung gross selling price times 12% nung amount ng sales ng gross selling price niya, so yan yung output tax. Hindi naman niya i-remit kaagad-agad yun sa BIR kasi nga, ang formula natin ng VAT payable sa BIR is babawas mo yung input tax. So, pag nagbenta ka, tapos multiply mo ng 12%, kung ang 12% ang mag-a-apply, output tax pa lang ang tawag natin doon. So, you have to determine pa yung input tax. Kasi nga, kailangan mong i-deduct yun. So, ano naman yung input tax? Ito yung seller's value added tax paid on purchases of goods and services and other items na ginamit sa business na subject to value added tax. So, yung mga binayaran mo, in short, yung mga binayaran mo ding VAT nung pag bumibili ka ng goods and services, pwede mong i-deduct dun sa yung output tax para makuha yung value added tax. Again, so for example, nakakompute ka ng 10,000 dyan sa output tax mo. Kunwari, times rate, gross selling price times rate is equal to 10,000. Tapos sa input tax mo, mga pinagbibili mong mga subject to value added tax na goods and services, kunwari, nakakuha ka ng input tax na 6,000. So, 10 minus 6,000 is equal to 4,000. So, yung 4,000 lang, yun yung i-remit mo sa BIR. What is what is output tax? Sinabi na natin kanina, nandun sa formula. It is the VAT on sale of goods and services. So, ulitin natin. Para ma-determine kung magkano yung i-remit mo sa BIR, na VAT payable mo sa BIR, kukunin mo lang yung output tax, tapos ibabawas mo yung input tax. So, yung output tax, sabi natin kanina, yun yung VAT on sales, VAT on revenue. And hindi pa yun ang i-remit mo sa BIR. Kailangan mo ding i-determine, mag-compute ng iyong input taxes. So, ito yung mga sources ng input tax mo. Yung letter A to H kapag ikaw ay engage in sale of goods and services, barter or exchange. Kasama na yung importation. So, syempre, makakakuha ka lang ng VAT sa iyong purchases kapag ang binibilhan mo ay mga VAT registered person din. So, value added tax paid on local purchases from VAT registered person or and or importation of goods. So, ito yung magiging sources ng input tax mo na ibabawas mo sa output tax. So, pag may binili ka daw locally or in-import kang goods for sale. So, mayroon kang binili or binili sa ibang bansa na ibebenta mo. So, pag nagbayad ka ng VAT doon, pwede mong gamitin yung binayaran mong VAT as input tax. Pwede mong i-deduct. For conversion into or intended to form part of a finished product for sale including packaging materials. So, hindi man yung goods na binili mo or in-import mo ang ibinenta mo, pero yung binili mo na goods or services or in-import mo ay ginamit mo para makaproduce ka ng goods. Ginamit mo siya as material. Kahit packaging material lang siya, pwede. Yung binayaran mong VAT doon nung bumili ka, nung in-acquire mo yung mga yon, magiging source ng input tax. Pwede siyang maging tax credit, ibabawas mo siya sa output tax. Yan. Pwede rin naman yung mga binili mo or in-import mo, gagamitin mo as supplies sa letter C. O, bumili ka ng mga consumables pero nagbayad ka ng VAT doon sa pinagbilhan mong seller kasi VAT registered siya. Siyempre, hindi ka magbabayad ng VAT pag hindi siya VAT registered. Wala siyang karapatang maningil ng VAT pag hindi siya VAT registered. So, para lang sa mga VAT registered, yung maniningil ng VAT. Letter D, for use in trade or business for which depreciation or amortization is allowed for income tax purposes. Capital goods except automobiles, aircraft, and yacht. So, yung mga binili mong capital asset, yung ika-capitalize mo, hindi siya expense, kasi nga i-depreciate mo siya. So, kung bumili ka niyang mga asset na subject to depreciation, pwede mong i-deduct yung VAT na binayaran mo doon. Letter E, value added taxes paid on purchase of real property. And then, pag bumili ka ng real property sa real estate dealer na subject to value added tax, then yung VAT na binayaran mo doon is pwede mo siyang gamiting input tax. Value added tax paid on purchase of services. Ganun din, pag nag-acquire ka ng services para sa iyong business at ikaw ay VAT registered, siya din ay VAT registered, din pwede mong i-claim yung binayaran mong tax sa kanya as input tax. Tapos, pwede ka pang mag-deduct nitong mga assumed deduction. Itong dalawa, assumed deduction ang tawag ko dyan. Ano yun? Yung transitional input tax at saka presumptive input tax. So, mag-discuss na lang natin ito kasi hindi naman talaga binayaran ng seller yung transitional at saka presumptive. Is parang a benefit lang or advantage given to them as consideration. So, transitional and presumptive. Yung transitional, kasi for the first time, siya masasubject ng VAT. So, parang benefit niya, ina-allow siyang mag-deduct ng transitional input tax dun sa kanyang output tax. Presumptive input tax, ito naman yung para sa mga benefit ng mga manufacturer ng certain goods and services. So, ina-allow silang mag-deduct ng presumptive input tax para mabawasan yung i-remit nila sa BIR na added tax. Now, let's proceed sa ating illustration. Mr. W, a VAT taxpayer, made a domestic sale of 600,000 and an export sales of 1.4 million. The output tax on domestic sales is output tax. So kung determine natin kung magkano yung tax on sales natin. So mayroon siyang dalawang sales, domestic at saka export sales. Yung export sale is 1.4 million, 600 lang yung domestic sales. So magkano ang output tax dyan? So first, you have to identify yung rate na gagamitin. So for local sales, we will be using yung 12% kasi local, ba? Sa Philippines lang. However, yung export sale na 1.4 million, it is export sale kaya zero rated yan. Kaya 600,000 times 12%, 72. Tapos 1.4 million times 0 kasi zero rated is equal to 0. So ang output tax lang natin is siyempre yung 72 lang. So let's continue. Mr. O imported goods to be sold with a landed cost of 40,000. He sold to Mr. P for 90,000. So dito muna tayo. Dito muna tayo yung pagbenta ni Mr. O kay Mr. P. So magkano yung i-remit na VAT ni Mr. O? Magkano yung VAT payable in short ni Mr. O? So ulitin natin. Si Mr. O nag-import ng goods na 40,000 tapos binenta niya ng 90,000 kay Mr. P. So ang output tax doon is 90,000 times 12% is equal to 10,800. Tapos, nung in-import niya, syempre yung importation is subject to value-added tax. Hindi siya zero-rated kasi export yung zero-rated. So, nung in-import niya, nagbayad siya ng 40,000, syempre mayroon siyang binayarang VAT doon. So, 40,000 times 12% equals 4,800. So, ang question is, VAT payable. So, ano ba ang formula ng VAT payable? Input tax ay output tax less input tax. So, magkano na yung output tax natin kanina? 90,000 times 12. So, ang output tax natin is 10,800. And ang ating input tax ay 40,000 times 12% is 4,600. So, ang difference ay 6,000. So, let's continue yung illustration. So, na kay Mr. P na yung goods. Tuloy natin. Mr. P sold the goods to Mr. Q for 170,000. So, again, yung pagbenta ni Mr. P kay Mr. Q, mayroon siyang output tax na 12% ulit. So, 170 times 12% is equal to 20,400. So, ang tanong, yun yung output tax ni Mr. P nung binenta niya kay Mr. Q. Ang tanong, magkano babayaran niya VAT? So, syempre, ibabawas niya ngayon yung binayaran niyang VAT. Yung binayaran niyang VAT kay Mr. O. Magkano na yung binayaran niyang VAT kay Mr. O? 10,800. So, ulitin natin ha. So, kay Mr. P na tayo, binenta niya kay Mr. Q ng 170. So, yung selling price ni Mr. P kay Mr. Q, 170 times 12%. So, mayroon tayong output tax na 20,400. So, mas maganda siguro isulat nyo. So, ang output tax noon is 20,400. Tapos, nung binilian ni Mr. P kay Mr. O, yung nakaraang transaction, nagbayad siya ng tax na meron siyang binayarang na tax na 10,800. So, 20,400 minus 10,800 is equal to 9,600. Tapos, anong nangyari? Mr. Q secured the services of Mr. R as a service contractor and paid Mr. R 50,000. And then, Mr. Q sold 400,000. Pataas na ng pataas. So, si Mr. Q, binenta ulit niya yung goods ng 400,000. So, ang output tax no, sa pagbenta ni Mr. Q ay 12% times 400,000 equals 48,000. Ngayon, ano ang input tax ni Mr. Q? Siyempre, yung binayaran niya kay Mr. P. Magkano yung binayaran niya kay Mr. P? Nung binili niya yon? Siyempre, yung 20,400. Pero hindi lang yan. Nag-hire siya ng service contractor, si Mr. R. So, mayroon ding VAT doon na 12%. So, 12% of 50,000 is 6,000. So, 48,000 minus 20,400 minus 6,000 is equal to 21,600. So, just in case na medyo nalito kayo doon sa previous problem, pwede nyo namang i-replay. No? Ulit-ulitin lang yung portion na yon. I suggest, isulat nyo na lang yung sinabi ko. No? Mr. R, a VAT taxpayer, made a sale at 100,000. The value-added tax not included of goods that he bought at 3,000 from a non-VAT taxpayer. Magkano ang VAT payable? So, si Mr. R is a VAT taxpayer. So, yung kanyang sale is subject to 12% na VAT. So, pag minultiply mo yung sale niya na 100,000 ng 12%, you will get 12,000. So, yun yung tinatawag nating output tax. So, ulitin natin yung formula. Pag ang tinatanong ay VAT payable, output tax less input tax. No? So, mayroon na tayong output tax. 12,000. VAT on sale. 12,000. Ang input tax natin is 0. Bakit 0? Kasi bumili siya ng goods sa non-VAT taxpayer. So, in that case, wala naman siyang VAT na binayaran sa kanyang purchases. So, therefore, wala siyang i-deduct na input tax. Yung input tax niya is 0. So, this time, ang VAT payable natin is 12,000 kasi walang deduction. Mr. S, a VAT taxpayer, made a sale at 100,000. The value-added tax is not included. Of goods he bought 3,000 from a VAT taxpayer. Value-added tax not included. What is the value-added tax payable? So, kung kanina, non-VAT yung binili niyang 3,000, ngayon, dito sa ating susunod na illustration, VAT taxpayer na ang binilhan niya. So, syempre, magkakaroon na siya ng input tax. So, parehas lang naman itong dalawang problem. Ang difference lang is yung sa 3,000. Yung 3,000 ay binili dun sa una, non-VAT. Pero dito sa pangalawa, it is from VAT taxpayer na. Kaya, pwede mo nang i-deduct yung kanyang input tax. So, ngayon, ang mababago is magkakaroon na siya ng input tax. So, ang computation natin ng VAT payable, 100,000 times 12, yan yung output tax mo, so 12,000. Tapos, less input tax kasi VAT taxpayer niya na yung binilhan niya ng 3,000. So, 3,000 times 12% kasi VAT not included. Magkano yun? It is 360. So, 12,000 minus 360, it is 11,640. So, yun yung VAT payable. So, please take note, kapag sinabi sa problem na VAT not included, ang gagawin mo is you have to multiply yung tax rate. Multiply mo lang. Pag VAT not included, multiply mo lang yung tax rate na 12%, 0% o kaya 5%. Pero what if ang sinabi ay VAT included? So you have to multiply ng 12 over 112. Or ang pag i-reduce mo yon 3 over 28. Kapag gagamitin mo yung 3 over 28, kapag VAT inclusive. Pag yung VAT is included dun sa amount. Pero pag hindi included katulad nito, multiply mo lang ng tax rate. So again, ang requirement is to compute for the value added tax. So output tax less input tax. Doon muna tayo sa output tax. VAT on sales. So sabi natin kanina, although gross selling price yung sinasabi, merong downward adjustment. Ano yung mga downward adjustment na allowed ng tax law? Yung sales returns, allowances, and discount. So ang magiging tax base natin is yung amount ng gross after mo may deduct yung returns, allowances, and discount. So magiging output tax mo 178,800 times 12% is 21,456. So, para makuha yung VAT payable, syempre, compute mo rin yung iyong input tax na magkano? 89,500 times 12% is equal to 10,740. So, 21,456 less 10,740 is equal to 10,716 na VAT payable. So, ang requirement is how much was the value added tax payable for the month. So, since value added tax ang hinahanap, so, gamitin natin yung formula na output tax less input tax. So, yung output tax again is yung VAT on sales. So, hanapin lang natin yung sales. So, mayroon dyan sales on account, 100,000. So, yun lang naman. Pero mayroong present na downward adjustment. That is yung sales returns and allowance at saka yung sales discount na 10,000 at saka 1,800 respectively. So, 100,000 minus yung total ng dalawa, 11,800 is equal to 88,200. So, yun yung adjusted gross selling price mo. I-multiply mo yan, syempre, ng 12%. So, magkano ang output tax mo? 10,584 is correct. Next, syempre, para makuha mo yung VAT payable, kailangan mo rin i-compute yung iyong input tax. So, ano na ulit yung mga input tax mo? Diniscuss natin isa-isa kanina yung sources ng input tax. Yung VAT paid on sale o on acquisition of goods for sale. Yung goods na ginamit mo para maka-convert ka ng materials into finished goods. Kasama na yung mga packaging materials. Kung may VAT kang binayaran, yun, input tax din yun. Pag may binili kang supplies at mayroong VAT kang binayaran, so pwede mo rin gamitin yung binayaran mo VAT doon sa purchase mo ng supplies. Yung mga properties na binili mo na subject to depreciation, yung mga capital asset, pag may binayaran kang VAT doon, pwede mo rin i-deduct as input tax. Yung value added tax na binayaran mo sa real property na binili mo. Yung value added tax na binili mo sa services, pwede rin mong i-deduct yun para mabawasan yung output tax. And yung last two ay transitional input tax at presumptive input tax. So ano-ano nga ba ang meron dyan sa mga ating sources ng input tax. So, syempre, yung purchases on account. Pero, meron din siyang adjustment, purchase, discount, at saka purchase, returns on allowance. So, ibabawas mo din yun sa iyong purchases. Ayan, 1,700 at saka 300. So, 2,000 ang deduction dun sa 42 na purchases on account. So, 40,000 ang net purchases. So, 40,000 times 12% is 4,800. So, kunin na natin yung VAT payable. Yung 12% yung 12% mo na output tax kanina is 10,584 and 4,800 yung iyong input tax. So, ang difference ay 5,784 na VAT payable. So this is our last example for this step. So again, ang requirement is how much is the value added tax payable for March. So, syempre, start natin sa output tax. So, hanapin natin yung sales. Ayun, 1,500,000. So, meron ba siyang other revenue pa? Wala naman na kasi purchases, puro purchases. So, yung March 30 lang ang sales. And then, wala naman na siyang downward adjustment. So, ang output tax lang natin is 1 million times 12%, it is 180,000. So, tingnan natin yung mga purchases niya kung subject to VAT. So, kung subject to VAT, isasama natin sa 12%. So, unahin natin yung March 2, 3-2, purchase of goods from I-company, VAT taxpayer, VAT not included. Kasama ba yan yung 300,000? Siyempre, kasama yan. So, times 12%. Tapos, mamaya, i-deduct natin yan sa output tax na 180,000. Tapos, 3-4, bumili siya ng purchases of goods for sale, non-VAT taxpayer, 200,000. So, since non-VAT taxpayer yan, hindi siya kasama. Hindi ka magbabayad ng VAT yan. So, therefore, walang input tax dyan. March 10, purchase of supplies, 50,000. From Mr. K, VAT taxpayer, correct? So, kasama yan. So, times 12% yung 50,000. So, yung 200,000, hindi times 12% yun na kasi non-VAT taxpayer. So, cross out yung 200,000. So, ano pa ba ang source ng input tax natin aside from yung 300 at saka yung 50? Yung March 15, purchase of services, VAT not included. VAT taxpayer, si Mr. L. So, yes, 60,000 times 12. Compute. Magkano yung input tax nun? Kasama yan. Purchase of equipment. M company, VAT taxpayer. So, pwede rin. So, 40,000 times 12. Ano pa ba? Purchase of land used in business from VAT taxpayer, VAT not included. So, VAT taxpayers din siya. So, kasama. 500,000 times 12. Sale of land. And then yung last, March 31, payment of rent to O company. VAT taxpayer, VAT not included. Ayan. So, VAT taxpayer din siya. So, times 12% din yun. So, total mo lahat yung input tax natin. Correct. It is 120,000. So, 180,000 yung output tax natin kanina. Yung 1.5 million times 12%, 180,000. Tapos yung na-total natin kaninang kasama, na multiply natin ng 12% is 120 yung input tax. So, ang VAT payable is 60,000. So, I guess ito na yung last problem. So pag hindi, anyway, this is recorded, kaya pwede nyo namang ulit-ulitin. Pag hindi na gets, so isulat nyo na lang yung sinasabi ko kanina para mas maintindihan. Okay, so thank you class for watching. So if you have question, paki-post na lang sa ating Google Classroom. And this is recorded, kaya pwede nyo namang ulit-ulitin kapag hindi nyo nakuha yung explanation dun sa problem. So I suggest, sabi ko kanina, isulat na lang yung sinasabi kong computation. At ulit-ulitin lang naman para na-gets yung kasi kung ilalagay ko dyan yung solution, eh di wala na kayong gagawin. So dapat maglo-note din kayo para ano, it is engaging kumbaga. No? Hindi lang yung nanonood lang kayo at nakikinig. Dapat may ginagawa din kayo. So ang naisip ko is hindi ko na ilalagay yung solution para naman sinusulat nyo. Ayan. So, sabi kasi nila, pag sinusulat mo daw, mas natatandaan mo. Parang nare-review mo. So, thank you very much and God bless. See you next sa next topic natin, which is chapter 3.